Welcome to Dasanti Discoveries. Today we're taking a trip back to the early 2000s to explore one of the most legendary mobile phones ever made, the Nokia 3310. This little brick of a phone became a global sensation and remains a cultural icon even decades after its release. Back in the day, before smartphones ruled the world, the Nokia 3310 was the mobile phone to own. It was simple, reliable, and tough as nails. But what made it so special? And why are so many people still talking about it today? In this video, we'll dive into the history, features, and lasting impact of the Nokia 3310, the phone that helped shape the early days of mobile technology. The Nokia 3310 was launched in September 2000 by the Finnish company Nokia. At the time, mobile phones were just starting to become widely popular, and the 3310 arrived at the perfect moment. Nokia had already made a name for itself with earlier models like the Nokia 3210, but the 3310 took things to a whole new level. With over 126 million units sold worldwide, the Nokia 3310 was one of the best-selling phones in history. So, what made it such a hit? For starters, it was incredibly user-friendly. The phone featured a clean, simple design that was easy to navigate, even for people who weren't tech-savvy. It didn't have the bells and whistles of modern smartphones, but it did everything you needed: calling, texting, and a few classic games. Let's talk about the features that made the Nokia 3310 stand out. First off, this phone was known for its durability. The 3310 earned a reputation for being almost indestructible. People would accidentally drop it, sometimes from great heights, and it would still work perfectly. It could survive rough handling, and in many ways, it was the phone that refused to die. This toughness became one of the 3310's most famous traits and led to countless memes and jokes on the internet about how unbreakable it was. Another key feature was the battery life. Compared to today's smartphones, which often need to be charged daily, the Nokia 3310 could last for days, sometimes even a week, on a single charge. This was a game changer for people who didn't want to worry about constantly recharging their phones. The phone used a small monochrome display and didn't have power-hungry apps running in the background, which helped extend its battery life significantly. Of course, we can't forget about Snake, the iconic mobile game that came pre-installed on the 3310. Snake was simple but highly addictive. You controlled a snake that grew longer as it ate dots, and the challenge was to keep it from crashing into the walls or its own tail. It's safe to say that millions of people spent countless hours playing Snake on their Nokia 3310s. In many ways, it was the original mobile gaming experience. One of the reasons the Nokia 3310 was so beloved was its simplicity. In an era before smartphones, the 3310 offered exactly what people needed without any unnecessary complexity. It had a straightforward menu system with options for messaging, contacts, call logs, and settings. Navigating the phone was easy, and sending text messages was a breeze. Speaking of texting, the Nokia 3310 introduced T9 predictive text, which made typing much faster and easier. Instead of having to press a button multiple times to get the right letter, T9 would predict what word you were trying to type, speeding up the whole process. For many people, the 3310 was their first experience with texting, and T9 made it much more user-friendly. Another notable feature was the phone's customization options. You could personalize the Nokia 3310 with interchangeable faceplates, allowing users to change the color and design of their phone. This was a fun and popular way for people to express their personality and make their phones feel unique. While today we have phone cases for that, Back then, swapping faceplates was all the rage. As we mentioned earlier, the Nokia 3310 became famous for its durability. Whether it was dropped on the pavement or accidentally left in the rain, the 3310 would almost always keep working. It's no exaggeration to say that this phone was practically indestructible. Part of what made the 3310 so tough was its design. It had a solid plastic shell that could absorb impact, and because it didn't have a fragile touchscreen, there was much less risk of damage. The buttons were also physical, meaning there was no risk of the kind of screen malfunctions we see with modern touchscreens. There are countless stories of people finding their old Nokia 3310s years later, covered in dust, only to charge them up and find that they still worked. This level of endurance made the 3310 more than just a phone. It became a symbol of reliability. The legacy of the Nokia 3310 goes beyond just being a durable phone with a long battery life. It became an iconic part of early mobile phone culture. Long after smartphones took over the market, the 3310 remained a beloved piece of nostalgia for millions of people around the world. In fact, the 3310's reputation was so strong that in 2017, Nokia decided to bring it back. They released an updated version of the Nokia 3310 with some modern features like a color screen, a camera, and basic internet connectivity. It wasn't intended to compete with smartphones, but rather to offer a nostalgic, simple phone for people who missed the good old days of basic mobile technology. This relaunch was a hit with fans, especially those who wanted a secondary phone or something simpler to use. The updated 3310 even came with a revamped version of Snake, bringing back fond memories for many users. So, why did people love the Nokia 3310 so much? For one, it was a phone that just worked. It didn't have any complicated features, it wasn't fragile, and it didn't need constant charging. It was reliable and easy to use, which made it perfect for people of all ages. But there was also something more to it. The Nokia 3310 was part of a simpler time when mobile phones were used for calling, texting, and maybe playing a game of Snake. There were no social media apps, no notifications every few seconds, and no constant distractions. It was a phone that let you stay connected without being overwhelmed by the digital world. For many people, the 3310 represents a time when technology was just beginning to change how we communicate, and it brings back memories of that era. Whether it was your first mobile phone or the one you kept for years because it just wouldn't die, the 3310 left a lasting impression. The Nokia 3310 may not have the advanced features of today's smartphones, but it remains a legend in the world of mobile technology. Its simplicity, durability, and long battery life made it a favorite for millions of people around the world. And even though we've come a long way since the early 2000s, the Nokia 3310 still holds a special place in our hearts. Whether you owned one back in the day or you've only heard stories about its indestructible nature, the Nokia 3310 is a reminder of just how far mobile phones have come. It was a phone that did its job well and, in many ways, set the stage for the smartphones we use today. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through mobile phone history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other pieces of tech history you'd like to learn about. We've got plenty more stories to explore, so stay tuned. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.